What's going on, guys? Coming back with another video. And there is big-time news coming out of the Cleveland pipeline regarding the offense. And why this is big-time news, if they could pull this off. So, don't skip a single second of this video. And if this story touches your heart, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and let us know in the comments. Where are you watching from? Let's begin. Something just shifted in Cleveland. And if you're a Browns fan, you felt it the second that news started circulating. Because for the first time, in a long time, it feels like the front office might actually be making the move everyone has been begging for. Real help for the quarterback. And I'm not talking about another depth receiver, another potential guy, another player who's supposed to develop 3 years from now. I'm talking about a real one, a proven one, a future Hall of Fame level wide receiver who has been terrorizing defenses for over a decade, Mike Evans. And the moment his name started getting connected to Cleveland, you could feel the conversation change instantly, because Browns fans know exactly what this offense has been missing. A true WR1, someone defenses actually fear, someone who walks onto the field and immediately changes how the entire secondary lines up. And if you've been watching this team closely, you already know the truth. The Browns offense hasn't had that guy. Not consistently. Not at the level you need if you're trying to build around a young quarterback. And that brings us to the real story here. Shedeur Sanders. Because this entire conversation isn't really about Mike Evans. It's about what Mike Evans would mean for him. See, young quarterbacks don't develop in a vacuum. They don't magically become stars just because they were drafted high or because the fan base believes in them. They need weapons. They need veterans. They need players who can turn a risky throw into a first down. Players who win contested catches. Players who bail you out when the play breaks down. Players who walk into the huddle and command, respect the moment they speak. And that's exactly what Mike Evans has been his entire career. Think about it. 11 straight 1,000-yard seasons. Let that sink in for a second. 11. That's not just production. That's dominance. That's consistency at a level we almost never see in this league. You don't accidentally put yourself in the same statistical conversations as Jerry Rice. That only happens when you've been elite for a very long time. And imagine pairing that with a quarterback like Shedeur Sanders, a young QB trying to prove he belongs, a quarterback with confidence, with swagger, with something to prove every single Sunday. Now suddenly he's not throwing to receivers fighting for separation. Now suddenly he's throwing to a 6'5" nightmare matchup who wins 50-50 balls like they're 80-20. That changes things. No. Let me say that again. That changes everything. Because the moment you add a receiver like Evans, the entire identity of the offense shifts. Defenses can't stack the box the same way. Corners can't sit on short routes. Safeties can't cheat toward the run game. Everything opens up. And more importantly, the pressure on Shedeur Sanders changes too. Instead of asking a young quarterback to create magic every drive, you're giving him something every great quarterback eventually gets. A safety valve, a difference maker, a guy you can trust when the game is on the line. But here's the real reason. This moment feels bigger than just a free agent rumor. It feels like a decision point. Because Cleveland is standing at a crossroads right now. You drafted the quarterback. You told the fan base he's the future. You told the city this is the guy who's supposed to lead the next era of Browns football. So the question now becomes simple. Are you actually going to build around him? Or are you going to leave him out there fighting uphill battles every Sunday? Because if the Browns truly make this move, if they really go out and bring Mike Evans into this offense, then the message becomes crystal clear. They believe in Shedeur Sanders, and they're finally ready to build this thing the right way. But that leads to the next conversation fans are already debating. Is Shedeur actually in the position to succeed in Cleveland right now? Let's be honest about something that a lot of people around the league don't want to say out loud. The Shedeur Sanders conversation has been completely backwards. Every week you hear analysts debating whether he's the guy, whether he's ready, whether he can actually lead the Cleveland Browns offense. And the way they talk about it, you'd think this team handed him a perfect situation, and he just hasn't delivered. But if you've actually been watching the games, if you've been paying attention to what's happening on that field, you know the real story is a lot more complicated than that. Because the truth is, Cleveland hasn't exactly made life easy for their young quarterback. Not even close. Young quarterbacks need support. They need stability. They need playmakers around them who can make defensive coordinators nervous. But when you look at this Browns offense over the past stretch, what you've seen is inconsistency. Drives stalling out because receivers can't separate. Third down opportunities disappearing because of drops. Defenses crowding the line of scrimmage because they know there's no elite threat on the outside. And that changes everything about how a quarterback has to play. Instead of reading the defense and trusting his weapons, now Shedeur has to hold the ball longer. Now he has to force throws into tighter windows. Now he has to create offense out of nothing. That's not how you develop a young quarterback. We've seen this movie before in the NFL. Look at what happened with Jalen Hurts early in his career. The conversation around him was brutal. People questioned his arm, his decision-making, whether he could actually lead an offense at the highest level. And then, something changed. The Eagles surrounded him with real weapons. A.J. Brown arrived. Devonta Smith developed. Suddenly, the same quarterback people were doubting looked like a completely different player. And that's why this Mike Evans conversation matters so much. Because Evans isn't just another wide receiver you plug into the rotation. This is one of the most reliable players the league has seen in the last decade. 11 straight seasons with over 1,000 receiving yards. Think about how ridiculous that level of consistency is. Corners know what's coming, safeties know what's coming, and he still finds a way to dominate. That's the kind of presence that changes the entire dynamic of an offense. Now imagine that guy lining up outside for Cleveland. Imagine Shedeur Sanders dropping back and seeing a 6'5" veteran who knows exactly how to win a one-on-one matchup. A receiver who doesn't panic when the ball is in the air. A guy who can turn a risky throw into a highlight. That's not just helpful for a quarterback. That's transformational. Because when you give a young quarterback a true WR1, something interesting happens. The excuses disappear. The doubts disappear. The conversation shifts from, can he survive, to, how good can he actually be? And that's the moment Cleveland is approaching right now. Because if the Browns actually land Mike Evans, if they truly give Shedeur Sanders that kind of weapon, then the spotlight moves somewhere else. It moves to the people running the franchise. Because while this move would be exciting for fans, it also raises a much bigger question about the Browns organization. Are they finally ready to build this offense the right way? Or is this just another moment where Cleveland almost gets it right? There's a reason this moment feels bigger than just a free agent rumor. Because for Cleveland, this isn't only about Mike Evans. This is about pressure. Real pressure. Pressure that has been building inside that front office for years. And if you followed the Browns long enough, you already know why fans are skeptical whenever big decisions start coming out of Cleveland. This organization has talent. It always has. But the criticism that keeps coming back season after season is that Cleveland struggles to build a complete offensive identity. Pieces show up. A promising quarterback here. A talented running back there. A young receiver with potential. But the system never fully clicks together the way it should. And that's why the spotlight is now locked directly on General Manager Andrew Berry and the people running this roster. Because this offseason feels like a test. A real one. Fans aren't just watching the games anymore. They're watching the decisions. Every signing, every draft pick, every contract. People want to know if this organization finally understands what it takes to build around a young quarterback in today's NFL. And right now, the debate is everywhere. Turn on sports radio. Scroll through social media. Check any Browns forum. The arguments are the same. Are the Browns investing in the right positions? Are they building this offense correctly? Or are they still overthinking everything? Because one side of the conversation says Cleveland should focus on the trenches. Protect the quarterback. Spend big money on the offensive line. Build the run game. Play physical football. And look, that logic isn't crazy. Protection matters. If your quarterback is constantly under pressure, nothing else works. But here's the other side of the argument, the one that more and more fans are starting to believe. The modern NFL is about explosive playmakers. Look at the teams that scare defenses right now. Kansas City, Miami, Philadelphia, San Francisco. Every one of them has receivers who can flip a game in one play. And when you don't have that, defenses know it. They sit on routes. They crowd the middle. They dare your offense to beat them over the top. And too many times, Cleveland hasn't had the weapon that forces defenses to back off. That's why this Mike Evans conversation feels so important. Because if Andrew Berry actually makes this move, If Cleveland lands a receiver with Evans' resume, it sends a message, a loud one. It tells the league that the Browns understand what this offense has been missing. It tells fans that the front office is serious about surrounding Shedeur Sanders with elite talent. And it tells the locker room that this team is done playing small. But here's the flip side. If Cleveland misses on this opportunity, if Evans signs somewhere else, if the Browns once again walk into the season without a true WR1, their criticism is going to explode because fans are tired of hearing about potential. They want results. They want a roster that actually makes sense. And right now, Andrew Berry is standing at a crossroads. One decision could calm the entire conversation. One signing could change how people view the future of this franchise. And if that signing happens, if Mike Evans actually walks into that Browns locker room, then suddenly, everything about this offense looks different overnight. There are good players in the NFL. And then there are players who change the entire energy of a locker room the moment they walk through the door. Mike Evans is one of those guys, and that's the part of this conversation a lot of people are missing. Because when fans hear his name connected to Cleveland, the first thing they think about is stats. They think about the 1,000-yard seasons, the touchdowns, the highlight catches down the sideline. But what Evans brings to a team goes way beyond the box score. This is a Super Bowl champion. This is a player who has spent over a decade battling the best corners in football and still walking away with production year after year. 11 straight seasons over 1,000 yards. Think about that level of consistency for a second. Different quarterbacks, different coaches, different defensive systems, and the numbers never stopped. That kind of reliability does something to a locker room. It creates trust. It creates confidence. When a player like Evans lines up outside, the entire offense knows exactly what they're getting. A professional, a competitor, a guy who has already seen every coverage the league can throw at him. And for a young quarterback like Shedeur Sanders, that kind of presence can change everything about how he plays the game. Because development in the NFL isn't just about talent. It's about environment. It's about who you have around you when things get tough, when the crowd is loud, when the defense is coming after you. And that's where a veteran receiver like Evans becomes priceless. Picture it. 3rd and goal in the red zone. The defense knows the ball is coming out fast. Corners are pressing. Safeties are creeping closer to the line. And out wide, you've got a 6'5" receiver who specializes in winning those exact moments. That's a security blanket. That's the kind of weapon that makes a young quarterback breathe a little easier in the pocket. Now suddenly, Shedeur Sanders isn't second-guessing every throw. Now he knows if he gives his guy a chance, that ball might come down as a touchdown. And that confidence changes a quarterback. You start seeing deeper throws, more aggressive reads, more trust in the offense as a whole. But the ripple effect doesn't stop there. Because when you add a player like Mike Evans, defenses start adjusting immediately. Safeties can't cheat as much toward the run game. Corners can't sit on short routes. Suddenly, Cleveland's passing attack has gravity. Defenses have to respect it. And that opens the door for the entire offense to breathe. The run game improves. Play action becomes more dangerous. Explosive plays start showing up where they didn't before. But maybe the biggest impact of all isn't even on the field. It's psychological. Because when a franchise signs a future Hall of Fame receiver, it sends a message that every player in that building hears loud and clear. We're serious now. We're not rebuilding forever. We're trying to win. For a city like Cleveland, a fan base that has lived through years of offensive frustration, that kind of message matters. It represents belief. Belief in the quarterback. Belief in the offense. Belief that this team might finally be turning the corner. And if this deal actually happens, if Mike Evans really ends up wearing a Browns jersey, Cleveland won't just be adding a receiver. They might be changing the entire identity of the franchise. But that leads to the biggest question of all. What happens next if everything finally falls into place? Every NFL turnaround starts with one moment, one decision, one move that changes the direction of the entire franchise. And when you look back at the teams that eventually became contenders, it's almost always the same story. There's a point where the organization stops hesitating, a point where they stop playing safe, a point where they finally decide to go all in on the future they believe in. For Cleveland, this could be that moment, because if the Browns actually pull this off, if Mike Evans ends up in that locker room, this isn't just another free agency signing. This is a statement to the league, a statement to the fans, And maybe most importantly, a statement to the quarterback you just handed the future of the franchise to, Shedeur Sanders. For months now, the national conversation around Sanders has been filled with doubt. Analysts questioning whether he can handle the pressure. Critics wondering if Cleveland made the right decision building around him. Every throw dissected, every mistake magnified. But here's what those conversations often ignore. Quarterbacks don't rise alone. They rise when organizations commit to helping them succeed. Think about the biggest quarterback jumps we've seen in recent years. When a young passer suddenly goes from promising to dangerous. It almost always happens after the same kind of move. A major weapon arrives. A difference maker. A player who forces defenses to change their entire game plan. We saw it with Jalen when A.J. Brown showed up in Philadelphia. We saw it when Josh Allen got Stephon Diggs in Buffalo. The quarterback didn't magically become better overnight. The environment around him changed. Confidence grows. The offense expands. The entire system suddenly starts working the way it was supposed to. That's the kind of ripple effect a player like Mike Evans can create. Because once defenses have to account for a receiver like that, everything opens up. The deep ball becomes real. The red zone becomes dangerous. The offense stops playing cautious and starts attacking. And that's when a young quarterback can truly take off. But this moment isn't just about scheme or production. It's about belief. Cleveland fans have been waiting for a long time to see their team commit fully to a vision. Not halfway, not cautiously, but completely. If the Browns bring in Mike Evans, that message becomes clear. They believe in Shedeur Sanders. They believe this offense is ready to evolve. And they believe the time to start winning is now. Because, let's be real for a second, if this move happens, the narrative around Cleveland changes overnight. Suddenly, this offense has a true number one receiver. Suddenly, the quarterback has a veteran security blanket. Suddenly, the Browns look like a team that actually understands what it takes to compete in today's NFL. And when that happens, something interesting follows. Respect around the league, from analysts, from opposing defenses who now have to prepare for a completely different offense. So yeah, right now it's still a rumor, still speculation, still a move that hasn't officially happened yet. But if Cleveland makes it real, if Mike Evans actually becomes a Brown, this won't just be another signing. This could be the moment we look back on and say, that's when everything changed. And if that happens, the rest of the NFL might finally have to take Cleveland seriously.